As we sew around this, we are just using, again, a regular straight stitch and a 1/4 inch seam. We are going to back stitch. We're going to go forward a few, stitch backward a few, just to the very edge of that, and come forward. Now, as you get to the zipper, this gets very, very thick. We do want to make sure everything is sandwiched kind of appropriately. So we want to line up your lining fabric, just kind of sandwich that in there to make sure your edges and everything are lined up appropriately. So just kind of make sure that everything's laying nicely before you zoom past your zipper. It will also be very thick, and it will be a little loud as we sew over this big hump here where your zipper is. Okay, we're just gonna keep on going. As we get to the bottom, we're going to reverse a few and then sew off the edge. All right, remember we are not doing anything with the L right now. So I'm going to go ahead on my bottom edge. Now remember, this is the edge with the interfacing that we're going to leave a gap. So I'm going to sew forward, reverse, sew forward, but we are going to leave a gap in here, so we're not going to sew very far. I'm going to stop and reverse a few, and then sew forward a few. I'm going to take my needle out, and I'm just going to pull this along slowly so we can leave our gap. And then we're going to start, so I've left a gap here, okay, and then we're going to start about 2/3 of the way down again. Sewing forward a few, reversing a few, sewing all the way to the end. I'm going to reverse a few and then sew off the edge. So again, we have not sewn in the middle. I'm going to cut that length of stitch there. And so you'll notice there's no stitching in the center here, and that's what we wanted. All right, we're going to hit our other two sides. All right, we're going to start here. Making sure everything's lined up again, sewing forward a few, reversing, sewing forward. Again, when you get to the zipper, we do want to make sure things are lined up again nicely. And we're able to just sew right over that lump. And again, it could be kind of loud again as we go through all of these layers. Reverse a few at the end, and then sew off the edge. Okay. And then our very last side, we're just going to sew on all the way along the length. Sewing forward a few, reversing a few, sewing all the way down. We did reverse a few at the end of that. All right, so I do want to make sure that I have trimmed all my extra threads that are hanging off. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to work with our corners. Okay, and then at each corner, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of pull these two sides apart. Okay, so we've got the corner. We're gonna pull these apart and you're going to kind of make them flat. So again, what I did is I had my L, I grabbed right at this little indentation, this corner on each side, and I pulled them, the two layers apart at that corner. And when you do that, you're going to basically end up sewing straight across because it becomes straight. You'll notice that I have a seam on this side and a seam on that side. We do want to make sure that those seams are completely lined up. So again, my seams are lined up and I'm going to sew directly across. Again, a 1/4 inch seam, reversing. Okay, and so when you're done, it'll look like that. We're gonna do that to our other side, so I'll show you again. We're gonna grab right at that corner, the inside of that L, and we're gonna do that on both sides and kind of pull them apart. My fingers don't want to work. Okay. Pull right at that little corner of the L until it becomes flat and it's straight across. And we're going to sew that again. Again, 1/4 inch seam. Over here as well. Now when we do that on our side with the interfacing, remember you're going to be taking 2 layers of fabric with you. So you need to have on each side, you need to have your lining piece and your interfacing. Again, we're going to grab at this little corner, but you do want to make sure that you have 2 layers on each side. And then we're going to sew straight across that. Making sure you reverse at the beginning and the end. Okay. I'm going to do that again. Again, making sure that you're pulling the layers apart. You should have a piece of lining and a piece of interfacing. And mine do not want to come apart. Come on. There we go. Okay, and so again, we're going to bend at the L. Well, I had it. Okay, bend at the L on both sides, and we make it flat, and we're going to sew straight across. Did reverse at the beginning and the end of each of those, and I have trimmed all of my layers off. Okay, so at this point what we want to do is because there's only one opening, we are going to turn this right side out through our opening down in our interfacing. So we're just going to slowly turn that. And it's going to end up looking like your zippered pencil pouch in a second. Now you might remember this was our lining on the inside. So now that we've got that turned, we are going to actually flip this inside out. Okay, so you'll just kind of get everything lined up. Poke some corners out, similar to what we had to do on our pillow. Poke our corners. These are the corners we just did to make that flat, so it will sit flat. You just want to make sure, kind of stick your fingers down in there, make sure that corners are all together. And basically at this point you have your zippered pencil pouch. Zipper works nicely back and forth. Okay, so it works good. Everything's enclosed nicely. The only thing we still have to do is, if you remember, we turned this, we left an opening in our lining earlier, so that we could turn this. We need to sew this shut. At this time, what you're going to do is the ladder stitch to sew this shut. So you're going to, again, turn the inside, turn your opening to the inside so there's no raw edges showing, and you do want to pin that in place. Okay. All right, and then you're going to do the ladder stitch in order to sew this opening closed. You do want to probably use a thread that's very similar in color, and then you'll get that opening closed, and then you will be able to use, once that's finished, take your pins out and be able to use your zippered pencil pouch. If you need the tutorial on how to do the ladder stitch, remember it was step 2 of our pillow form, so you can go ahead and access that if you need to as well, to finish this up. But at this point, again, you're going to do the ladder stitch to close your opening up. Once you close that opening up, we're going to pretend I did. Again, you're just going to stuff this all back in here nicely, and again, you will have your perfectly done zippered pencil pouch. Remember, your last step is always going to be to trim any loose stitches, as that is part of your grade, so making sure that you trim your stitches. All right, guys, that is your tutorial on your zippered pencil pouch. Hopefully it all goes well for you, and you have a very nice pouch to use for your school supplies or makeup bag or whatever you might need.